Welcome to In My Opinion 4, The Witch and the 100 Knight 2. In the world of Kevala, there's a strange sickness known as witch's disease. This makes females inflicted by said disease grow an eye in their head, and once it awakens, it turns them into witches. This is the predicament Amelie finds herself when her only living family member and sister, Milm, catches it. After getting ran out of her village, she joins the Weiser Ritter, an organization known for stopping witches and helping out with the witch disease. They start to perform the operation on Milm to get rid of the witch's eye before it awakens. But it's too late, and the self-proclaimed powerful of all-time witch, Chelka, wakes up and brings a 100 Knight doll to life. After some destruction, Amelie finds and hides Chelka since she sees Milm is still alive within her. Now it's Amelie's goal to find a cure for Milm while trying to keep Chelka on the down low with, of course, assistance from the 100 Knight. I highly enjoyed the story as it has a good amount of funny dialogue.
Of warm shit.
But I don't want to be a puddle of warm shit.
And the characters are entertaining, even some of the non-important ones. There's also some interesting twists and turns that suck you in more. The cast isn't as big as the first game, but that's fine since most get the same amount of time that the cast from the first game got. Of course, the lead gets the most time, which surprisingly is not Chelka. Instead, it's Amelie. I know some people who were turned off by this, and some coming in will probably be hesitant, but I didn't mind as I didn't find her to be a bad character. She may not be some super badass, but she does try her best to help even when it's clear she's outmatched. This, after all, is a story about her trying to save her sister no matter what, and it shows. Now that's not to say Chelka loses all importance, not at all. She just disappears for like 2 or 3 chapters since her and Milm do share a body. But when she comes back, she is important once again, and let me tell you, she is great. The interaction she has with other characters gave me a little smirk of joy. Now if you're wondering if the tone is the same as the last game, it kind of is. There is some dark and messed up moments, just not as much as the first. Though you do have those fuzzy moments as well to counterbalance the dark. If you're a newcomer, don't worry, as this game has zero connection to the first game. It's set in its own universe with all new characters, and you don't need to know anything. The only relation it has with the first is that there are witches and 100 Knight is in it. The game does have multiple endings like the first, and I'll give you a hint like last time. The options start at chapter 8 and go for the bad end.
Hurt you, but I do have a dastardly punishment planned. One that will bury you in embarrassment and shame. Whoa, hey! Stop it now! Easy, Chelka!
Just like the first, this is an isometric action JRPG. While bashing down your foes, you may have noticed depending on what you use, your attack will be labeled as effective, ineffective, or just something will show up. This is because there are 3 types of attacks in the game, which is slash, blunt, and magic. You don't need to worry what is what as the game gives you the symbols so you know what type you're carrying. You can set up your equipment rather easy in the equip menu where depending on where your weapon is on the 5-hit combo chain, it'll do a little more damage, and there's even a special attack animation depending what's the final weapon used in the combo, such as a spear being tossed across the screen. Mystical dodge has returned and works pretty much as the same before, which is just timing your dodge just right, allowing you to go all slow-mo and give you a big old opening to deal out some serious damage. As you kill all these monsters and break open some chests, you can pick up various drops like weapons, armor, and so on. However, you must have the stomach space for all this, as it's basically your suitcase. Now this may sound like a headache, but while it starts off small, it grows as you level up. Once you leave the map, all the items will be taken out of your gut and put in your normal inventory to make a clean slate for your next outing. There's also an ability called Third Eye, which is similar to Chaos Revelation from the last game. All you need to do is fill up that little circle on the lower left there, which is pretty easy as it starts to go up as you attack or use your mystical dodge. Once you activate it, you will start to gain AP, basically the game's magic meter, and all your abilities will be amplified. This is actually extremely helpful in some tough situations, and what's great is it doesn't reset if you leave the world map. You may have noticed a big countdown number in the corner. Well, that's your Giga Cow, which is important to maintain. The reason being, if it falls down to 0, you become much weaker. The number does slowly go down, but if you take massive damage and don't bother to heal yourself, it will drop even quicker since it's trying to heal you. There is a self-recovery technique you can pull off early in the game, but I find it useless as it drains even more Giga Cows. Falling in battle won't do you any favors as well, since not only do you lose some stomach items, 100 Knight will also absorb as much Giga Cow as it takes to fill your health, draining a good chunk. The game at least will spawn you out a pillar if you open one in the map you're in, and you can decide to teleport the heck out of there if you don't want to risk any more items. If there's no pillar, then you will respawn to begin the section you're in. There is no fog in the maps like in the previous game, as all the maps this time around are randomized, so that won't affect your gig count. This gig stuff may sound a bit scary, but do not fear, as the game gives you a good amount of ways to keep it maintained. There's the old fashioned use an item to restore some gig. Then there's a move called Depletura. I'm probably saying it wrong, but the game doesn't say it, so there it is. This lets you gain some gig depending on how big and strong the enemy is. It also lets you refill your AP, and if you're already at the max amount, it gives you a little more juice with the max being 200. To activate Depletura, all you need to do is hit an enemy with the last attack from a combo, and you will see the word let on the screen. All that's left for you to do is press the button, though you can hang on to it as long as you keep the combo meter up. This new technique is very helpful, though only works on enemies that are near death, so keep that in mind. If all this doesn't work out, then you can always start dropping items from your gut, which restores a tiny bit of gig. Face sets make a return along with some changes. This time you don't have to worry about leveling each face set separately, since now they have no levels. The game just goes by your regular character level. At a certain point in the game, you have 6 face sets to choose from, with each having their own speciality, such as being better at defense, magic, or maybe dealing out certain status effects. The other thing that sets them apart this time around are skills. Each face set has 7 skills, with 5 being activated and 2 being passive. And the game lets you equip 4 activated skills at a time. The active skills are things like a sword barrage, or a ninja clone attack, or a giant hammer smash. Though these have cooldowns and use up AP, so you can't just spam them. The passive skills of course are constantly active and don't drain any resources to use them. They range from things like auto regain health and quicker cooldown for skills. As you level up, you gain skill points, which can increase the effectiveness of all your skills, with level 9 being the max. And the best part of skill points is they are completely flexible. What this means is you can add and take away as much as you like. Did you put in all your points in a certain skill but found one that you like more, or maybe you just want to mess with? Well, just pop those points out and put them into your new skill. This is great as there's no punishment for you being experimental with all these face sets. You're allowed to have 3 face sets active at a time, which can be switched on the fly, and they have their own individual weapon loadouts to customize. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, the weapon loadout wheel is gone because they just combined the 2, which works out just fine. Tochkas also make a return, which are little sub-weapons that can help you out in battle, like throwing deadly boomerangs, planting powerful bombs, or summoning a giant totem thing that shoots magic balls and gets the attention of enemies. They really have no limit to them except for a cooldown, and if you're in a tight corner they may say you can't summon them. You can, just like the face sets, give these a raise in power with some skill points. They need to be equipped in one of the 4 slots where the other skills go. Though what's pretty neat is all your skill loadouts can have the same Tochkas equipped. So if you're a fan of just one and want to be able to use it between all 3 skill loadouts, you can. As you can see, when it comes to field and combat, the game has made some changes, and most of it is for the better. I never used face sets in the previous title as I found them kinda just there, and since you need to level them up separately, it made the thought of using them unappealing. So I just beat the whole game with the normal face set you got. Now that they don't have a level, and with the additions of all these skills, it makes it worthwhile, and not to mention, fun. Tochkas also feel more useful this time around, and take my advice, equip the boomerang. The stamina system is gone as well, so you can run and attack as much as you like and not trip over yourself. The way Giga Cows are handled is much more manageable, and now that you don't have to worry about stomach stones from the last game, item management is better as well. Some may miss the fog of war, the symbol thing on the weapons equip screen, which lets you increase the power of weapons depending on the symbol order, and the fact that you can temporarily increase your stats while on the field thanks to the pillars, but all the other changes more than make up for it. The one thing they did get rid of that makes no sense is the lock-on. Who thought this was a good idea? I understand it's not a big thing when facing the regular enemies since they always seem to pack in together and you're pretty much guaranteed a hit, but when it comes to the boss fights, it can be really annoying. I would toss my boomerang and completely miss my target sometimes, since I didn't stand right in the line of death. While you're not in the field, you're at your home base of Durga Castle. Now you can do pretty much everything like change your equipment, dish out skill points, and what skills you want to equip out in the battlefield or here, but there are other things you can only do at your castle. One of the first things you can do is actually see little mini scenes while picking which spot you want to check in your house. Just select the one with a big red exclamation point and bam, something funny. Next we got the Witch Pension. This is one of the spots you'll be spending the mana you've been getting from killing a bunch of enemies. Here you can trade mana for some shell, which is the game's currency for the store. Odd thing is this is the only way to get shell other than selling items, but since you get so much freaking mana, it's not a big problem. You can also trade back the shell for mana if you change your mind. What else you can buy with mana is some of the facets and touchguts that are available after you reach a certain point in the game. And you can also make the game harder or easier for free as well, if you want to change it up. And any DLC you buy should end up here as well. There's also something called Witch's Musician, which you can make 3 different playlists if you want to hear certain tunes while exploring. One of the most helpful things to do is visit the Atelier. Here is where you will become stronger by upgrading your weapons and armor. Each piece of equipment has a certain rank to it that you can tell by its color, be it in your inventory or before you even pick it up on the field. The ranks go common, rare, epic, and finally legendary. What makes them different is each piece of equipment can only be leveled up to a certain point, so common goes up to level 15 and legendary can go to 99. This system is simple and straightforward. You can use pretty much anything to help upgrade your equipment, such as other equipment, crafting items, and catalyst. If you're running low on catalyst, you can even buy some from the Witch Pension. Using all these materials can level up your equipment to increase its attack and defense power, your overall health, or increase the chance of giving your enemies certain status elements. After you got it all picked out, the game shows you what will change and how much mana it will cost, and you make your choice. This is great as it's not a blind decision, letting you mix until you get what you want. There is a shop as well in the little treehouse. This is where you'll be spending your shell on mainly items to heal you, regain AP, and so on. There is equipment here, but they are all useless, so it's best not to bother. Outside the shopping castle, there's a pillar that lets you save your game, as well as teleport anywhere on the world map. And of course, this works the other way around as long as the pillar and the other spots are open. This makes exploration rather easy since it's a big marker letting you know where to go, and you can make things quicker just by teleporting. If you need a full-blown refresher course on how everything works in the game, you can check out the Witch Guidebook in the castle that gives you the full rundown. Another little gameplay aspect I forgot to mention is that you can make choices to disagree, agree, or question as 100 Knight. Though all this does is change some dialogue, and it's really only important at one point to make a certain ending happen. One last thing I want to talk about is the boss fights. In the first game, you had to break their guard before taking down their main health. That's gone now, and instead the bosses receive a bigger amount of HP. Though I think the reason for this is because the skills you have can tear them apart if you catch them enough times. I felt the bosses were about 50-50 when it came to balance, as some were challenging but not insane, while there were others that had super cheap tactics or even had an area effect on them that can either one-shot you or at least two-shot you. Mix that up with the lock-on situation I mentioned before, and the fact that they have so much health makes it even more frustrating when all the time and work goes down the toilet because of a cheap hit. At least the game has the decency to have a save point before every boss fight with an enemy that fully restores your Giga Cow, since I'll tell you right now that some bosses can go on for so long, you may run out. The graphics are pretty similar to the first title on PS4, just touched up a little more, so it's still good looking and colorful with nice additions like leaves falling. Too bad that's the only positive thing I can say about these areas, as where this game falls that the other game gets the upper hand in is variety with these areas. This is probably due to them making all the maps randomly generated, but my god, this is starting to get dull seeing the same freaking forest area over and over and over again with just a different tint to it. No lie, I think there's like 4 or 5 areas like this. One time it even goes from green to a darker shade of green. The other game had more than one forest area, but you got much more sights to see like castles and rainstorm graveyards. Thankfully, we still got some great character designs. Everyone has their own eye-catching and unique look, with our main witch Choka being probably my favorite. And I actually kind of wish we got a figure of her in a limited edition like we did for Metalia in the first game's limited edition. The cutscenes are presented in 2 ways, either using in-game 3D models which don't look bad, or well-done drawings that are vibrant and colorful. These drawn scenes have mouth flaps and more than one character stand that give off emotion pretty well, so you won't be bored with what you see. They also throw in some special full-screen artwork during some of these scenes. One thing I did notice is that they don't have as much of the 3D model scenes as the first games, which while I don't hold it against this game, I still would have liked some more. There's some well done voice work for our cast of characters, giving us some great deliveries for both emotional and funny scenes. If you're not a fan of the English cast, you can switch to Japanese whenever you feel like it.
Manania wants to know my name? Fine. My name is Chelka, a name that you will come to fear. I have awakened from a deep slumber, and I have come to claim my rightful power.
The only technical issue I ran into was the framing would drop a little when a lot of enemies gathered on the screen with a bunch of visual effects from their attacks. It doesn't screw up the experience, but it's noticeable. The camera also didn't feel like that much of a problem. Just like the first, I really enjoyed myself and loved the cast and story. They also made great improvements within the gameplay itself, for the most part. This is a positive since if you were a fan of the original, you most likely will welcome the majority of the changes, and if you were put off by the first game because of how the mechanics worked, this one might be more inviting. I was able to complete all the endings around the 50-hour mark, and for replayability you have two options after the final boss. You can either start New Game Plus with all your goodies, or you can say leave me right before the final fight so you can clean up the rest of the map and maybe track down some tougher enemies. I'm still disappointed with the lack of variety when it comes to the areas since it did start to get dull seeing these samey places, and wish they just made set areas instead of randomizing them. Also, like I mentioned, some of these boss fights were a bit iffy as well. Though even with those negatives, I still would recommend this title and I hope for a part 3. So get your best witch's hat and come join Amelie and Chilka on their mad adventure. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamers' sake, keep gaming.